Hi everyone, welcome to today's class. Today I'm handling topic 4 of operations management in practice. Topic 4 is all about system design. So it reaches a point when you have to design a system, whether you are in the manufacturing or the service industry. So we have specific manufacturing systems and we have service systems. So we first need to understand which area are we in. Separate the manufacturing from the service. It is so easy to be able to know I'm dealing with a manufactured product or I'm dealing with a service. So once you have separated the two, there are several characteristics that will help us to be able to know this is manufacturing, this is service system or industry before even we go to the system. And then once you've differentiated between a manufacturing and a service, then you go ahead and come up with a system that is specific for manufacturing and also come up with a system that is specific for service. Then after that, we shall look at design and system capacity, a very important area. Whenever you're coming up with a system, you have to understand the capacity a system should be able to hold. We shall look at design and system capacity. There are two different capacities, but related to the same thing. So are you operating on a design capacity or the system capacity? So we shall get to know the difference between design and system capacity. Then we go ahead and look at the production systems. There are different kinds of production systems. We shall look at them together with the advantages and disadvantages of each and every system. Then we finally look at operations management design system. How do you design your system? Now you've reached that point where you need to design a physical system that is working, looking at the capacity and also looking at the industry, whether you are in the manufacturing or the service industry. So to start us off, we shall have to know the differences between a manufacturing and a service system. And there are several characteristics that will differentiate the two. For example, customer contact. In manufacturing, there's no customer contact. A product is first produced and then taken to the final customer. But in service, a production and consumption is done at the same time. That is the difference between manufacturing and service. The second difference is uniformity of input and uniformity of output being the third characteristic. So for the uniformity of input and uniformity of output, it means in the manufacturing sector, there is uniformity of input and there is uniformity of output. But when you go to the service industry, there is no uniformity of either input or uniformity of output. It means it is so difficult for you to get uniform output and input when it is in a service industry than when it is in a manufacturing industry. Because in manufacturing, you are the one who determines what goes in, and whatever has gone in, taken through the entire process, then you can determine what comes out of that process. So uniformity is easily achieved of either input or output in a production industry than in a service industry. Things like measurement of productivity, it is so difficult to measure productivity in a service compared to a product. Because in a product, I can be able to say, I produced this number of products, I took them through this particular process, I sold them here, and this is what I got out of them. So productivity is simple to measure in a product than in a service. Same to quality assurance. Quality assurance is challenging because production and consumption occur at the same time in a service. It is very challenging for you to know, I have offered this percentage of quality to my clients because they consume the service at the same time it is being produced. So quality assurance is very easy in a production setup than a service setup. So given that now you know the differences or the characteristics that make production different, or manufacturing, different from service, then you are able to know, now I'm dealing with the manufacturing, then what system can I be able to put? And now that I'm dealing with the service, what system am I able to put in place? So we go straight to the systems. There are two types of systems in terms of capacity. Apart from the two types of systems, now two types of capacity. So the first one is design capacity and the second one is system capacity. If I don't even go into details of explaining, if you want to know what design capacity is, every particular product or machine comes with its own design. And I can go and buy a machine in the market that produces 1,000 pieces per hour. That 1,000 pieces per hour is what we call design capacity. It is the capacity this particular machine can be able to provide maximally. So it means out of this 1,000 pieces that the machine can be able to produce, it means in a normal day, I may produce 300, I may produce 500, depending with the resources that I have. But most times it doesn't get to the maximum a machine can be able to produce. So you will always go buy a machine. I'm just using a machine as an example. You will always go buy a machine that has a huge capacity. Even if you will not be able to reach that particular capacity, as long as you can be able to buy a machine and say, maybe in future, I'll add more resources in terms of human resource, materials, to be able to get the capacity that is called the design capacity. On the other hand, there is the system capacity. System capacity is the maximum output of a specific product or product mix the system of workers and machines is capable of producing as an integrated whole. So I was giving you an example of system capacity being 500. The design for that machine, it is designed to produce 1,000. But in our current setup, we can only produce 500. That becomes the system capacity. And in actual terms, system capacity is always less than the design capacity. Because we may want to get to the design level and make sure that we produce this 1,000 pieces, but we are limited. We may be limited by materials, by the number of workers, by the finances, so we may not be able to produce at the design capacity. So naturally, the system capacity is always less than the design capacity. So I hope you've been able to get the difference. And why is it less or even equal? Sometimes it is equal, but most times it is less because of issues like breakdowns, issues like not having enough money to be able to produce at the maximum of a particular machine. All those are limitations that make a system capacity to be lesser than or equal to the design capacity. So once you've understood those differences, now you go to the production systems that we have. There are different production systems, but before we go to the systems themselves, there are features of a production system. A production system will depend on certain factors like the degree of standardization. Are you producing products that meet a certain standard? It will also depend on the type of operation. Are you dealing with a project or a job shop or batch processing? Those are types of operation. Number 3, those are the main ones. In fact, when you come to number 2, which is the type of operation, that is when you now divide the types of operations that you have. Are you dealing with a project? Because a project requires a unique system. Are you dealing with job shop? Are you dealing with batch production or processing? Are you doing a repetitive type of production, or is it continuous processing? So the system you come up with will depend with the operation that you're currently dealing with. Now, types of production. You can produce, there are several types of production, and the first one is make to stock. Some organizations make to stock. It's just as the word suggests, I make to be able to stock. I make and stock. So that is one of the types of production. Another one is make to order. I wait for an order to come and then I make whatever the order suggests. Of course, both of them or all of them have advantages and disadvantages. There's the third one called assemble to order. Assemble to order. So you should understand which type of production are you dealing with. Make to order means you make and then you wait for an order and then you make. Make to stock means you make and then you stock. So the name of the type of production will just tell you how you do it. And then after the types, we go to now the production systems or classification of the production systems. Don't confuse between the types and the systems. The types are those three. The systems are like job shop production, continuous production, batch production. Those are now classification of systems according to the production systems. So we classify them according to how you're producing. So the first one is job shop. We shall look at it. And job shop is a rare type of production system, but because it is custom designed, you produce custom designed products in small volumes. So you produce a product that is custom made for a particular type of market. We call it job shop. Then you got, of course, it has advantages, disadvantages. We go to batch production. It is a technology that you produce variety of products in different volumes. The unique thing is look at how you are producing. Here you're producing variety of products in varying volumes. Some you may produce in large quantities, some you may produce, but you are producing variety of products. Job shop, you're producing according to uniqueness of a product. It means these products you're producing, they are custom designed. So you don't produce a lot of them. You produce custom made products, quantity of products, and these particular products are in small volumes. You don't produce a lot. Why? Because they are custom designed. So job shop, and then we have of course the batch production. Then we have another production called mass production. It is when you're producing using a continuous production. You manufacture or assemble using a continuous process. And what characterizes mass production is very large volumes of production. You produce in very large quantities. And then, of course, it has advantages, disadvantages. And then the last one or the fourth one is continuous production. Very high volumes, highly standardized output in a continuous system. So there's a difference between continuous type of production and mass production. So for mass production, we are producing these discrete parts or assemblies using a continuous process. But when it comes to this particular continuous or flow shop, it's also called flow shop production, you're producing standardized products in very large volumes. So look at the advantages, disadvantages of each, because each method has its own disadvantage and disadvantages. So there are factors that will help you choose a production system, like the nature of the product, the demand pattern, the production volume, variety of products, degree of automation, lead time. There are so many factors that will make you say, I'm going for mass production and not batch production. I'm doing the job shop production and not continuous production. So you look at all these factors. There are very many factors. And then the last part of our unit here is operations management design system. When you're designing a system, you look at various factors. And there are some factors we shall focus on, like customer relationship management, CRM, what is CRM. We also look at product life cycle. A product has a life cycle from the introduction to the decline. So as you're coming up with your system, consider the product life cycle. Because at one time you may be expected to produce so much, at another time you may be expected to produce little because of the product's life cycle. Maybe the product is at the decline stage. That stage you don't produce a lot because you'll waste. But if the product is at the maturity stage or at the growth stage, you can increase the production. So this is one of the tools that will help you determine, how do I come up with a system? So the introduction stage, all those stages, we shall look at them. I know if you've done business in any other sector, you've met a product life cycle. It doesn't change. The only thing that changes here is now the applicability, because now we are applying a product life cycle on the operations design or the capacity of an organization producing a certain product or a service. So apart from the product life cycle, we have to look at another element called supplier relationship management, because you have to manage your suppliers, you have to manage your customers. Remember, they are both important in your organization, because as an operations manager, you are in between a supplier and a customer. So you need to know, how do I manage customers? How do I manage suppliers? And that is the essence of supplier relationship management and customer relationship management. So the benefits of managing suppliers, challenges of managing suppliers, all that. So by the time we are finishing with supplier relationship management, we will be done with this particular topic. So consider those major areas to be able to help you understand, how is a system designed either for manufacturing or for a service? What are the types of systems we have? What are the classifications of systems we have? And for operations management design system to take place effectively, what factors have to be in place? So thank you for now. We shall be able to expand more on this area.